there, YouTube. So tonight's little vlog on the way home from work. Thought I'd talk about. Last night I talked about stupid things you do as a kid. It's kind of a continuation of this. So if good Lord, what would I have been? 20. When did I move to Portland? I was 21 when I moved to Portland from Longview. It was after I moved out of home, moved from the nest, as it may be. And this is an awesome little road. This is Holcomb Acres over in Kelso, Washington. It'll just make a big loop. But the downside of the loop, unfortunately, I think is going to have you facing directly in the sun. But anyway, I don't think I'd been in Portland that long. And ended up, I'm not quite sure how I ended up on this ride. But anyway, we had all gone out. Oh man, I forget what it was. We took this ferry across the Columbia River. And me and this guy, I think is a couple years older than I am. His name was Keith. And he had just picked up one of those. It was when Harley had recently come out with the Evo motors. And he had one of the little 883 Sportsters. And man, at the time, those things were just hot. I mean, really hot. That was back when, Harley all but, went belly up. And the employees had recently bought the company back from AMF. And they came out with this Evo motor. They'd actually, if you look at the history of stuff, they've been working on it for a bit. But anyway, 84 was when it was released. I want to say this was around 85. I'm pretty sure I was living in Portland at the time. But anyway, we ended up on this ride with a whole group of people. It was some owners of a Honda shop and some customers and just friends and whatnot. So we end up, at the end, they all head back home, and we end up driving into Portland. And I was telling about some cool back roads and twisties up there, going over Germantown Road and Skyline Road up in the hills between what would that be, North Portland and Beaverton. I think that's the correct area. But anyway, he was one of these guys always bragging about how fast he was and how fast his little Sportster was and everything. And at one point, I was riding it was a Yamaha Venture Royal. So this actually was 1987, because it was an 85 Venture that I bought brand new in 87. So anyway, we swapped bikes, and man, I just thought that Harley was so terrible. And that Venture Royal, the Royal was the one that came with the onboard air compressor, cassette, CB, AM, FM, the whole, like Gold Wings and stuff are, it came with all the gizmos and gadgets, onboard air compressor, you could adjust the suspension on the fly type of deal. Anyway, so he gets on my Venture and just loves it. God, we just went forever, it seemed like, before I could get him off of that thing, and this them old solid mounted Sportsters, just shook your teeth out, And it's the old carbureted. If you ever drove any of those early Evo 883s, whoa, I think a 250 Rebel would probably give it a good run for the money. You're just going to get absolutely blasted right in the face. Hopefully this isn't going to be too bad, and I'll continue with the story. So we end up, up in these cool hills that, a bunch of kids go racing around in Portland. And man, he's just like pushing it and carrying on, wanting to go fast, and I just want to go for a cruise, I'm in no rush. Now, granted, if you guys have ever ridden these old Ventures, they handle pretty goddamn well at the time. I mean, nowadays, you know, they would be probably below average. But at the time, for a touring bike, I mean, you could really rail on those things. I go way too fast on mine. You know, old bikes like that, it doesn't scare me to go fast on them. But anyway, he's going on and on. He's like kind of pushing along, like almost like he wants to race me, you know. So we get into the real tight, twisty, I mean, these switchback stuff, you know, tighter than what we just went through back there. I don't know how the camera reveals what I just went through or not, but it's fairly tight, twisty stuff. And there's houses around there, so you don't go real fast to that. But anyway, so finally I just have enough of it, you know. And I said, you know, he's going along and he's mouthing off, and I'm just going to show this goofball, you know. Here I'm on this great big boat anchor touring bike, so I just take off. It was in the tightest, twistiest stuff, you know. You're just peg to peg dragging. These things handled so good, you know, mind you, at the time, you know. And so I'm gone. You know, he lasted maybe about a turn and a half, and he was just completely out of sight. So I rail along. I want to let him know, you know, you've pushed me too far, and, you know, if you want to see what fast is, I'll give you a little shot, and I'll be the guy on the big touring bike, and you're on a Sportster, you know, that should just make a fool out of this thing in the twisties. So finally I figured, okay, you know, I haven't seen him, you know, what little straightaways there are back there. He's just literally not in sight. I thought, shit, I better pull over. There was almost a switchback, and it had like a turnout. I don't remember if it was a viewpoint to look down over the city or whatever. It's way up in the mountains. And so I pull over, and I'm waiting, 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 and I'm waiting. I'm like, oh shit. You know, something's happened here. You know, there's no roads that turn off of this thing, you know, in this section, you know, other than people's driveways, you know. So I thought, oh shit. So I go back, and oh man, I must have went back 3/4 of a mile, and mind you, this thing's twisty. And so I start getting worried, you know. So I start picking the speed up, and almost this blind turn that is like a hill on one side and a drop off on the other, and you hug the inside, because, you know, cars would cut into your lane, you know. So you hugged it tight, and I go bombing around. Whoo! Come around the corner. Here's that damn Sportster laying on the ground, and there he is running around out in the middle of the road picking up pieces. Oil everywhere. It was in a left-hand turn. He had fallen down, and the foot peg came up, broke the foot peg off, and the foot peg had blasted a hole into the primary cover. So the primary oil was just puking all over the place, you know. It only holds a quart, but it looked like 5 quarts came out. I mean, it really looked bad. And son of a bitch, I got a fuel light. And who the hell is riding this goddamn thing? It must be taking off on joyrides or something when I'm at work. Crap. Completely changes the route I want to take. What does this thing go? 35 miles on reserve? There's an area I can stop. Wow, how many miles is that? Should be able to. I think it says you can go 35 miles on reserve. What the hell? We'll give it a shot, because that just totally derails the route I want to take. God damn, that's irritating. So anyway, you know, we pick up the pieces. He got scuffed up a bit, and, you know, and his tone, his personality, everything just absolutely completely changed. You know, he's kind of a smart ass. He's always talking about himself and how great he is, what a great racer he is. You know, I wasn't you know, I was an acquaintance of this guy. I mean, we weren't friends. We didn't hang out or anything like that, you know. And anyway, it's just one of those guys I probably wouldn't hang around with anyway. You know, he's so full of himself. I know you know the type of people I'm talking about. And so now he's like, you know, what am I going to do? I'm going to get home. And I said, well, we're not too far. I lived in southeast Portland at the time, off Holgate. And anyway, he picks up the pieces and stuffs them in his backpack or his coat pocket, whatever the hell it was he had with him. Or I threw him in the Venture, probably threw him in the Venture, all the luggage you got on that thing. But he rides home with his foot on top of the, you know, the primary cover on top of the clutch, you know, gimps his way to the house, and on the way back to my house, it's like I don't know, 3 blocks from the house. We decided, well, you know, we'll get some oil back in the primary cover, and because that's also on a sports. I don't know if you know this or not, but the oil is in the primary cover is also the transmission. You know, but it was all basically in-town stuff. You know, you're not going fast enough to hurt anything. And so we stop a few blocks. It was a plaid pantry or whatever they called them back then. Stop at this little Minute Mart and grab a 6-pack of beer, and we're gonna go back to the house and, you know, doctor up his Harley. Well, he gets out and it kind of takes off before me, and he's like a block ahead of me. And all of a sudden he's like looking all around and just pulls off to the side and rolls up onto the sidewalk on the side of the road. And I'm like, what the hell's he doing now, you know? And he's all looking around, and I come pulling up, and he's I mean, this Harley is dead. There's like no ignition. It's turning over, the lights are on, there's just no ignition. And he pushes it the last, you know, couple blocks or whatever it was to my house, and back then they had them old tube fuses, you know, and it looked like a fuse case or fuse box that you could buy at Radio Shack as, you know, some lab experiment or something. And that thing vibrated so bad that it actually broke the little tabs that held the tube fuses. So I had some stuff there at the house. We doctored him up. It had shut the ignition off or something. But got him doctored up, got him patched up with some duct tape. He still had to ride with his foot on the clutch cover, but anyway, you know, after that day, you know, I don't know, you're a young kid, and, you know, kind of arrogant, you know, and you let somebody push you into not really losing my temperature, losing your temper, but, you know, making you kind of fly off the handle a little bit and do something careless, like force someone to go over their head. And man, I have just always felt terrible about that. You know, I've met him a couple of times over the years since then, and you know, he's really turned out to be a stand-up guy. You know, just a cool guy. You know, he was young, I was young, but you know, you think back on stuff like that, and you really hurt somebody pulling stupid shit like that. And you know, I think of the people that are so easily coached into following somebody that rides faster than them, whether they want to keep up or they don't want to be made a fool out of. So, you know, they'll try to, not that there's any, you know, anybody trying to hurt anybody, but, you know, somebody that's faster than the group of guys you're riding with should, you see that there were, I swear that was frost on the ground back there. There's no way. It's 57 degrees, and I don't know how many feet up I am here, and I'm way up here. But anyway, you know, I kind of did that to kind of show him out, you know, and I guess to make a fool out of him or something. I knew he wouldn't be able to keep up. You know, I had several years of road racing under my belt at that time, and you know, that was really uncool of me to do that. Really uncool. And you know, the result was bad, and it could have been horrifically bad. Now, I don't know, still won't pick this up, but there's St. Helens sitting right there. That's big enough that the camera may pick it up. You can see Silver Lake down below. Wow, they really logged this thing out. This was not open like this before. It was like a tunnel of woods. Anyway, oh, hold on. If all else fails, gas it. Sitting there looking out the lake, and the damn cattle crossing snuck up on me. Little good old Torquey triple, she pulled me through. These things nose over pretty easy under brakes. You know, they're not that high off the ground anyway up front. But anyway, I guess you know, if I'm giving any advice, my advice would be, you know, if you're riding with guys with less experience, and you know they have less experience than you, you know, be cool about it and respect the fact that, you know, they're not going to be able to keep up with you. And you know, don't be a douche and, you know, try to show them how fast you are, because there's a good chance they're going to try to keep up with you, and that can end in disaster. So I guess that was a story, another story of me doing something stupid or careless, and maybe at the time I didn't think it through. You know, I think about it now and just think, you know, what a jerk. Mount Rainier, don't know if you can see that. She's sitting there pretty plain to see. There's Mount Rainier, and there's Mount St. Helens. Mount Rainier is probably, from where I'm sitting here, 45 miles as the crow flies. St. Helens is, I think it's about 20 miles as the crow flies. Maybe not that far. So anyway, another story of being young and stupid. And made this another 17 minutes, so I'll have to do some cropping. So thanks for watching. You guys have a great day. Take care now.